Joshua Tree 5, Dhammadina Vipassana Center, March the 19th, 2010. Venerable Vimala Ramsey. And the sutta tonight is
part of that?
part of the simile of the saw, which is Majjhima Nikaya number 21.
And? And
part of Majjhima Nikaya number 18, the honey ball.
Okay. Now you've already heard, if you've been here for 2 weeks, you've already heard it twice before. So I'm not going to go through the whole sutta. But the reason that I want to bring this up is because it is so incredibly important to keep in mind. Now this is one of the suttas that I want you to really to memorize. Okay? There are these 5 courses of speech that others may use when they address you. Their speech may be timely or untimely, true or untrue, gentle or harsh, connected with good or connected with harm, spoken with a mind of loving kindness or with inner hate. When others address you, their speech may be timely or untimely. When others address you, their speech may be true or untrue. When others address you, their speech may be gentle or harsh. When others address you, their speech may be connected with good or with harm. When others address you, their speech may be spoken with a mind of loving kindness or with inner hate. Here you should train thus. Our minds will remain unaffected. It means no matter what anybody says to you, that your mind remains unaffected, and you shall utter no evil words. You should abide compassionate for their welfare, with a mind of loving kindness, without inner hate. Abide pervading that person with a mind imbued with loving kindness, starting with him. You should abide pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. That is how you should train. Now these aren't just empty words. It doesn't matter what someone else says. You say, well, they say something that's hurtful, so it doesn't matter what they say. You use another person's words as the reminder to start practicing loving kindness. And all of a sudden, what seems to happen, the dog is chewing up something.
Oh. Oh.
Anyway, you want to have a mind that is on loving kindness as much as possible. And what happens when your mind is focusing on loving kindness? People are kind to you. They drop their harsh speech. They drop their emotional upset. The less you get involved with emotional grabbing on, the more your mind becomes clear. As you continue on with your radiating of loving kindness to this individual that came to you with their anger, or with their dissatisfaction, or with their judgments. As you radiate loving kindness to them, their tone changes, or they will walk away because they're not comfortable being around you. You want a situation to change? Love it. Put your loving kindness into everything. Doesn't matter what you're doing. Use that as your mindfulness practice with your daily activities, as much as you can possibly remember to do it. But you have to remember that you can't get critical and mad at yourself for forgetting. You just forgot for a period of time. Now start over again. Now the thing with the precepts is really, really important. And keeping the precepts as purely as you possibly can is very important. If for whatever reason you forget and you break a precept, you know that when you break a precept because your mind tells you, oops, you did that one, then take the precepts again. Right there. Forgive yourself for making a mistake. There's no need to have guilty feeling about it. Take the precepts again with the determination, this time I'm going to keep my precepts without breaking them. Your mindfulness improves immeasurably. You start knowing what you're going to do and say before you do it, which means that you cut down on the emotional outburst of your mind all of a sudden not liking something and having things come out of your mouth that aren't so good. When you're on the phone, when you're dealing with other people, radiate loving kindness to whoever you're with. And what that does is it helps your mind get into a sense of real balance. And that equanimity that you've taken so much effort to develop comes in. And people will start to look at you and go, you're different. What have you been doing? And then, if they're really curious, you can give them little things to help them. Yeah, like I'm learning how to practice having an uplifted mind. Well, I want some of that. Okay, takes a little practice. And that way you don't become a born-again Buddhist. That way you are teaching by example. And that's the way people really pay attention. They pay attention to the way you handle yourself with whatever situation there is. And putting love and kind thoughts into that situation, and putting loving and kind thoughts into another person that you're dealing with. It's pretty amazing when you do that, because instead of pigeonholing somebody, say, thinking that they're a particular way, now you're putting loving kindness into them and the situation, and it's allowing for change to happen, and it happens in a wholesome way. That's what the practice is about. It's about living. It's not about anything other than that. As you continue on with your practice. And you're keeping your precepts very closely. And you're sitting for 1 or 2 or 3 hours a day. Oh, that's a lot. Well, it's either that or watch TV. What do you think? You know? You will progress and progress very well. And before long, Nibbana will arise for you. When? Whenever the conditions are right. But you have to be very careful with the conditions that you're setting up. You overindulge in your sensual pleasures, then mind goes away from Nibbana. Why? Because you're identifying with those sensual pleasures. Now this doesn't mean you can't eat good food and enjoy it while it's there. Or you can't do something with one of the sense doors. You can, but your mindfulness is such that you allow it to be. And what winds up happening is you start enjoying everything, every part of life, because you're in the present moment with it. You're not letting your mind go off and think about other things while you're doing this. We had a lady from India come and visit. Her name was Deepama. And this lady was amazing, truly remarkable. And you think, well, she's an anagami. She must be not enjoying life because this is the practice. But that was the opposite of what I got from her. I can remember asking her one time, Deepama, what's in your mind? And she said, loving kindness, mindfulness, and concentration. Wow. Is that all? And that's what we want to develop. A mind that can be so much in the present moment that whatever they're doing, whatever you're doing it so completely that there's no aversion in your mind at that time. There's only this loving kindness, and you're with it totally. Yeah. Who was this woman? Deepama? Little Indian lady from Calcutta. She's now not with us anymore, which is really a shame.
Did she hug you?
Yes.
That was so
Oh
nice.
my. Yes, she did.
A hug that lasted for days.
Oh yeah. You walk around with this silly grin on your face for days on end,
Right.
because there was so much pure love in that hug. Really good. It lasted more than a week, as I remember.
Yeah, I just walked around grinning for days.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
You can hug by her too.
yeah. She kind of insisted. She went like, "Come here," you know.
Yeah.
Again, okay, you know. Sweet older lady, you know. It was like, I walked out of there and it was just like, what happened?
Yeah, my toes aren't touching
Yeah,
the
not
ground
on the
anymore.
ground anymore. It's like, that's sure.
Really?
Yeah, I never believed this, you know, this twinkle toes kind of stuff, but boy, I sure did after. Is her daughter teaching Deepa?
She wasn't the last I heard, but I haven't heard for quite a few years now. So,
What kind of practice did she?
She went to Mahasi Center and she practiced what they teach at Mahasi Center. And she did have some psychic abilities that were quite good.
Maybe that's it, psychic thing.
No, it was the open heart. It had nothing to do with psychic.
Yeah.
She remember say she would materialize herself in this class.
Yeah, he said that she was very proficient at diving into the earth and coming up where she wanted to. She'd pop up all the time. Hey, I got a question. Okay, answer the question, pop back down.
Boy, that would be the end of you with me.
Oh my God. Please don't develop that one.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I always going and asking him during the week at least 25, 30 times. Excuse me, I have a question. Imagine
Can
if
I ask a question? Okay. I told her that's what I was going to put on her gravestone. Can I ask a question? If you keep this advice on practicing loving kindness constantly in mind, do you see any course of speech, trivial or gross, that you could not endure? No, venerable sir, he's talking to the monks. Therefore, you should keep this advice on practicing loving kindness constantly in mind. That will lead to your welfare and happiness for a long time.
What paragraph was that?
21. I changed it a bit. He's finding out
Yeah,
how much I've changed things.
I didn't let on. Okay. Just, I mean, yeah, but for the better. It just makes it more fluid.
You know, I was going to do 18, but I think I'm going to do 152.
152 instead of 18.
This is not very long, and it's called the development of the faculties.
Oh.
Indriyabhāvanā Sutta. Thus have I heard on one occasion the Blessed One was living in Kanjagala in the grove of some trees. Then the Brahmin Uttara, a pupil of the Brahmin Parasaraya, went to the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he sat down at one side. The Blessed One then asked him, Uttara, does the Brahmin teach his disciples the development of the faculties? He does, Master Gautama. But Uttara, how does he teach his disciples the development of the faculties? Here, Master Gautama, one does not see forms with the eye, does not hear sounds with the ear. That is how the Brahmin teaches his disciples the development of the faculties. Shock? How do you not see when you're looking at something? If that is so, Uttara, then a blind man and a deaf man will have developed the faculties completely, according to what the Brahmin says. For a blind man does not see forms with the eye, and a deaf man does not hear sounds with the ear. When this was said, the Brahmin student Uttara sat silent, dismayed, with shoulders drooping and head down, glum and without response.
Can you show us that?
Then, knowing this, the Blessed One addressed the Venerable Ananda. Ananda, The Brahmin teaches his disciples the development of the faculties in one way, but in the Noble One's discipline, the supreme development of faculties is otherwise. Now is the time, Blessed One, now is the time, Sublime One, for the Blessed One to teach the supreme development of the faculties in the Noble One's discipline. Having heard it from the Blessed One, the monks will remember it. Listen, Ananda, and attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, Venerable Sir, he replied, and the Blessed One said this. Now, Ananda, how is there the supreme development of the faculties in the Noble One's discipline? Here, Ananda, when a monk sees a form with the eye, there arises in him what is agreeable. There arises what is disagreeable. There arises both agreeable and disagreeable. He understands thus. There has arisen in me what is agreeable. There has arisen what is disagreeable. There has arisen what is both agreeable and disagreeable. But that is conditioned, gross, dependently arisen, and is peaceful. This is sublime. This is equanimity. The agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and both the agreeable and disagreeable that arose cease in him, and equanimity is established. In other words, when a sight arises and your mind has equanimity in it, you don't have that craving establish itself of I like it or I don't like it, because your mind has this very strong balance in it. Just as a man of good sight, having opened his eyes, might shut them, or having them shut might open them, so too, concerning anything at all, the agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and both agreeable and disagreeable that arose cease, just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. This is called the Noble One's discipline, the supreme development of the faculties, regarding forms cognizable by the eye. So the stronger your equanimity becomes, the less movement there is, the less shaking of mind there is. There's just being in the present moment and seeing it as it actually is, without having the feeling arise. And if feeling doesn't arise, craving doesn't arise. And if craving doesn't arise, you don't have any thoughts, you don't have any concepts, you don't have any opinions. You're seeing it with true balance.
I remember that in the 6 sets of 6, it says, I craving is not mine, I craving is not myself. So, can craving arise without...
Not without feeling, and there's no feeling, and there's no agreeable and no disagreeable. If feeling doesn't arise, craving won't arise. If feeling does arise, craving can arise.
So, can craving be impossible?
Never.
No. Always possible.
Always.
And when a person comes out of the situation, is there craving in his mind?
No.
Because he sees all the links.
No. He sees it with equanimity.
So they do arise.
They do arise and they do cease all on their own. It's just seeing with equanimity how this process works.
But if...
Just like if your eyes are closed and you open them, And you see with equanimity there is nothing agreeable or disagreeable, it's just I hitting color and form, that's all.
Okay, and no craving.
No craving. Again, Ananda, when a monk hears a sound with their ear, there arises in him what is agreeable, there arises what is disagreeable, there arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. He understands thus, and equanimity is established in him. Just as a strong man might easily snap his fingers, so too concerning anything at all, the agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and both the agreeable and disagreeable that arose, cease just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. This is called the Noble One's discipline, the supreme development of the faculties regarding sounds cognizable by the ear. And Ananda, when a monk smells an odor with the nose, there arises in him what is agreeable, there arises what is disagreeable, there arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. And he understands thus. And equanimity is established just as raindrops on a slightly sloping lotus leaf roll off and do not remain there. So too concerning anything at all, the agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, the both agreeable and disagreeable that arose cease. I just lost where I was. It cease. Just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established in him. This is called the Noble One's discipline, the supreme development of the faculties regarding odors cognizable by the nose. Again, Ananda, when a monk tastes a flavor with the tongue, there arises in him what is agreeable. There arises in him what is disagreeable. There arises in what is both agreeable and disagreeable. And he understands thus, and equanimity is established. Just as a strong man might easily spit out a ball of spittle collected on the tip of his tongue, so too concerning anything at all. That's a real key statement. Concerning anything at all. The agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and the both agreeable and disagreeable that arose cease just as quickly, and just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. This is called the Noble One's discipline, the supreme development of the faculties regarding flavors cognizable by the tongue. Again, Ananda, when a monk touches a tangible with the body, there arises in him what is agreeable. There arises what is disagreeable. There arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable, and he understands thus. And equanimity is established in him, just as a strong man might extend his flexed arm, or flex his extended arm, so too concerning anything at all. The agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and both the agreeable and disagreeable that arose cease just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. This is called the Noble One's discipline, the supreme development of the faculties regarding tangibles by the body. Again, Ananda, when a monk cognizes a mind object with mind, There arises in him what is agreeable. There arises what is disagreeable. There arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable, and he understands thus. And equanimity is established, just as if a man were to let 2 or 3 drops of water fall on an iron plate heated for a whole day. The falling of the drops might be slow, but they would quickly vaporize and vanish. So too concerning anything at all. This is how strong the equanimity has to be. The agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, the both agreeable and disagreeable that arose cease just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. This is called in the Noble One's discipline the supreme development of the faculties regarding ideas cognizable by mind. This is how there is the supreme development of the faculties in the Noble One's discipline. And how Ananda is one, a disciple in higher training, who has entered upon the way. Here Ananda, when a monk sees a form with the eye, hears a sound with the ear, smells an odor with the nose, tastes a flavor with the tongue, touches a tangible with the body, cognizes a mind object with mind. There arises in him what is agreeable. There arises what is disagreeable. There arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. He is repelled, humiliated, and disgusted by the agreeable that arose, by the disagreeable that arose, and by both the agreeable and disagreeable that arose. That is how one is a disciple in higher training, one who has entered upon the way, and how Ananda is one with developed faculties. Here Ananda, when a monk sees a form with the eye, hears a sound with the ear, smells an odor with the nose, tastes a flavor with the tongue, touches a tangible with the body, cognizes a mind object with mind, there arises in him what is agreeable. There arises what is disagreeable. There arises both agreeable and disagreeable. If he should wish, may I abide perceiving the unrepulsive in the repulsive. He abides perceiving the unrepulsive in the repulsive. If he wishes, he may abide perceiving the repulsive in the unrepulsive. The unrepulsive in the repulsive, and the repulsive in the unrepulsive is talking about the agreeable and then the disagreeable.
For seeing them both at once.
No, it's individual. You see them one at a time, like that. He abides perceiving the repulsive in the repulsive if he should wish. May I abide perceiving the unrepulsive in the repulsive and the unrepulsive. And he abides perceiving the unrepulsive in that. If he should wish, may I abide perceiving the repulsive in the unrepulsive and the repulsive. He abides perceiving the repulsive in that. If he should wish, may I avoid both the repulsive and the unrepulsive and abide in equanimity, mindful and fully aware. he abides in equanimity towards that, mindful and fully aware. So what we're getting down to is the equanimity again, and how your mind with true equanimity doesn't shake anymore, doesn't move anymore. It sees everything as being the same. This is how your mind becomes dispassionate.
I mean, isn't it the same, or is it without reaction?
It's seeing without reaction, of course.
Yeah.
But it's seeing it as being the same. Each one of the, by the same, I mean without reaction.
Right.
Right.
I mean, if you see a can, a thrown away beer can laying in a garden, and you see a rose, they both have color, shape, and form.
Right.
But you're saying that there won't be,
Won't be any
if you see it with
reaction.
equanimity, they are just that.
They are just that.
Okay.
That's all they are.
So it's without reaction.
Yeah. That is how one is a noble one with developed faculties. So Ananda, the supreme development of the faculties in the noble one's discipline has been taught by me. The disciple in higher training who has entered upon the way has been taught by me. The noble one with developed faculties has been taught by me. What should be done for his disciples out of compassion by a teacher who seeks their welfare and has compassion for them, that I have done for you, Ananda. There are those roots of trees, those empty huts. Meditate, Ananda. Do not delay, or else you will regret it later. That is our instruction to you. That is what the Blessed One said, and the Venerable Ananda was delighted and satisfied in the Blessed One's words. So that gives you an idea of how strong the equanimity has to be, and how useful the equanimity is when you go really deep into your meditation.
Oh, coming pretty handy.
There are these roots of Joshua trees. Okay, got any questions? Yeah.
So he said, why when Buddha was in Nibbana, and Ananda cried, but the Arahat
Did not.
did not.
Right. Because Ananda was only a Sotapanna. He still had some identification with the thoughts and feelings. He knew they weren't personal, but he got overwhelmed by the sadness. Again, there are these roots. So, this really gives you a good idea of the direction of the equanimity that has come to full development. That's what the equanimity does for you. Just keeps your mind. This is the same as that. It's there, and that's okay for it to be there, and that's the way it is. Okay? Let's share some merit. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearlessly. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we of us acquire for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. may beings inhabiting space and earth, take this not as a mighty power, shares the spirit of ours. May they alone protect the Buddha's dispensation. And the thing with practicing loving kindness towards all the people that you see or talk to is that it helps keep your mind in that state of equanimity. Okay? So please